Governance Officer for this meeting. And before we get into the formal meeting agenda, which hopefully everybody has now seen and is published on our website, I will go quickly and hopefully clearly through the remote meeting protocols. So I'll just go to my screen on my page. So the remote meeting protocol is as follows. Only speak when invited to by the committee chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. You can raise your hand by just raising your hand on the screen, but there's also a raise hand button / function in Google Meet as well. At the bottom of your screen should be the button in the middle. Please ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking. And I know that some of you, because of connection issues, are unable to turn on your camera. That's absolutely fine as long as your microphone's on and we can hear you speak. That's great. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time frames. And there will be no cross-examination between interested parties. That will not be allowed. If referring to any written submissions, please refer to the specific page number in the agenda pack. Any new evidence can only be submitted at the discretion of the chair and agreement of all the parties. If you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet to raise those technical issues. Please do not use the chat function to put any formal questions to the committee, and any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in your removal from the meeting. And once the application has been considered, all the interested parties will log out the meeting, and we'll have a sort of post-briefing with the council as the legal officer, and then a written decision will be sent out as soon as possible after this meeting has finished. So that is the remote meeting protocol. We will now go to the formal meeting agenda in the pack and also published on the website, which is the first item, which is the election of the chair. Councillors, please, over to you.
Thank you. I wish to nominate Councillor Richard Lufkin as chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Suso Ronge. I'm now going to just ask Amanda one of well, actually, first of all, let's do a round of introductions first of all, if that's okay. So my name is Richard Lufkin. I'm the local councillor for Shackerwell, and I'm also vice chair of the licensing committee. Perhaps I can move on to you, Councillor Suso Ronge.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sheila Suso Runga, and I'm the councillor for the Hackney Central Ward, and I'm a member of the licensing committee. Thank you.
And now, if I just go through them as they appear, I've got David Shaw.
Yes, I'm a local resident living very close to the proposed premises. That's all I need to say.
Fine, thanks. And the next person is David Chewett.
Good afternoon. I'm David Chewett. I'm team leader, licensing and technical support. I made representation on behalf of the licensing authority.
Okay. Then I've got Gareth.
Gareth Sykes, Governance Officer. You would have heard from me in terms of the council or the invite for this meeting. Also, I published the papers, and I'll be taking the minutes for this meeting today.
Okay, then I've got Mario.
Mario here from ICT support.
Right, thanks. And then Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Agnew. I'm also from Government Services, and I'm just observing.
Thanks. And then I've got SG Licensing.
Good afternoon. It's Stuart Gibson, actually.
Okay.
Representing, I'm the agent representing the applicant. Thank you.
Fine, thanks. Then I've got Steve Sinclair.
Hi, I'm Steve Sinclair, and myself and Paolo Mozzato here are the applicants.
Okay. Then I've got Suba.
Hi there, I'm Subhashri Ramana, Principal Licensing Officer, and I will be presenting the report this afternoon. Thank you.
Fine, thanks very much. I think that's everybody on the call, isn't it? Is that right? Oh, no. Got Amanda, did you introduce yourself?
No, my name's Amanda North. I'm a solicitor supporting members this afternoon from Legal Services. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is there anybody else?
I think that's everybody, Chair.
Fine, thanks very much. I'm now going to ask our sister Amanda to just go through the meeting procedure, if that's okay.
Yes. So the meeting procedure is in the agenda pack, and step one of the agenda item is the appointment of the chair and introductions, which have been done. Step two, the licensing officer will outline the report in the pack. Step 3, the applicant's case. The applicant will present their case to support their application. That will take 5 minutes. Step 4, the responsible authorities will be invited to make their representations and their objections to the application, which are contained in the report, and that will take 5 minutes. Step 5 is other persons. Those are local residents. The chair will invite any other persons or local residents in attendance to present their case, highlighting their reasons for objecting to the supporting of application as contained in the written submissions, and that will take 5 minutes. Step 6 are the discussion phase. The chair will structure and lead a discussion on the information presented, enabling the subcommittee members to clarify any points raised and ask questions if necessary, and that will take 15 minutes. Step 7, closing remarks. The chair will ask the responsible authorities, other persons and the applicants and their representative and the licensing officer if they have any final comments to make. These comments can only be in relation to issues raised during the discussion. These remarks should be brief, and that should take 10 minutes. Step 8 are final clarifications. The licensing subcommittee members will have a final opportunity to make and seek clarification on any points raised, following which the chair will conclude the discussion and all parties will be asked to leave the meeting. And the next step will be consideration, where members will consider the decisions. Thank you.
Chair, before we just, I realise we've sort of slightly skipped ahead a little bit and gone to the hearing procedure. Just for completion, if we could just do apologies for absence and also declarations of interest and minutes.
Yes, I think he was going on to that now.
Oh, apologies, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, you're on mute. So, Chair, in accordance with the agenda on the pack, if you could go through the items there.
Okay, first of all, we've done, as you said, we've done the appointment of chair and the introductions. The licensing officer. Do we have any declarations of interest?
No declarations of interest, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, the second thing is minutes of the previous meeting. I don't think we've got any minutes of previous meetings. Is that correct?
There are no
correct,
minutes,
yes.
Chair, and also just in terms of apologies for absence, Chair, Councillor Root.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Thanks very much. Yeah, if we could. Then the hearing procedure we've just gone through. Item number 6 has been deferred, so we've just got item. We've just got item number 7, which is the Arch 322 Andrews Road. And now I'm just going to ask if the licensing officer could just outline the report.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So we are going to consider a premises license received by the licensing service for Arch 332 Andrews Road. The applicant is seeking for live music, recorded music, late night refreshment, and to authorize the supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises. Police have withdrawn their representation based on agreed amendment to the hours and condition. So the new proposed licensable activities hours are 800 hours to 2300 hours, Monday to Thursday, 800 hours to 100 hours Friday and Saturday, and from 1000 to midnight on Sunday. The timings for the side area of the premises, which is the outside, is from 800 to 2200 Monday to Saturday, from 10 to 2200 Sunday, and the outside area at the front of the premises, the agreed hours are 800 to 2200 Monday to Thursday, from 800 to 2300 Friday and Saturday, and from 10 to 2200 Sunday. The representation still remains from licensing and other persons. We have received additional information from the applicant and C1 other persons, and all these documents have been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Now we move over to the applicant's case. I'm particularly interested in hearing, you've gone for requesting of hours for outside of our core hours policy in Hackney, which is to 11 o'clock. We do grant these, but only in very exceptional circumstances, and we'd be interested to hear what you believe those exceptional circumstances are. And also, looking at the representations, you're requesting for outside space, which I know has got a number of, which I know is had a number of objections about. If you could particularly address those questions as in particular when you make your case. Thanks very much. Over to you, the applicants.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My clients, the applicants, are here as well, and happy to, no doubt in discussion, embellish what I'm about to say. This is an application for a delicatessen bakery, cafe stroke bar. It encompasses a lot of activity in terms of licensing. The cafe stroke bar represents about 50% of the space of the premises. You will no doubt have read my submissions that I sent in detail last week, and I don't propose to try and go over those in the time I'm allocated. But the original application we submitted received responsible authority objections and interested party representations as well. And as a result, we had an on-site meeting on the 25th of January with the police and the licensing authority to basically discuss how the application was likely to proceed. Now, as a result of that, we also entered into negotiated email conditions with Environmental Health. And as a result of the meeting, the police, who are no doubt the custodians of crime and disorder objectives, now support the application. The Environmental Health themselves have withdrawn their application and support in their own way as well. But we still have a licensing authority objection, as you know, but my understanding is because the hours that we are proposing are outside of the framework hours for Hackney, which is fine. But the late hours, and as you mentioned in your introduction, Chair, the late hours are requested to facilitate the events that the applicants are looking to host. It's not an everyday occurrence. It's not going to be open till that time where there is no event, but it allows them the flexibility to operate a successful event should they have such a booking to take place. The events are cultural of nature. They would be architectural talks. They would be book signings. They would be of that nature. As I say, not every night, but allows them the opportunity to have events throughout the year on these particular evenings to allow the flexibility of booking. We're left then with the interested party objections. And it's worth pointing out, Chair, very, very briefly, for the record, and I'm sure you obviously are aware of this, but the discussion today is for the application that is before you, not anything to do that may or may not have been written in the press or potential crowdfunding websites that are littered all over the objections. They have no relevance whatsoever for you today. I, for one, have not seen any of these, and therefore have not party to any of that in the application. It's got no part of the application. The applicants are well aware that they can only operate, should you grant this license, under the conditions of the license that may or may not be granted, and if they deviated from that in any way, they would be subject to review and potentially revocation of their license. So that is something that needs to be disregarded totally. The other concerning point in the objections, and it is again worth noting that the objectors would believe that me personally, being the agent for the applicants, are trying to mislead the committee in what we're asking to do. And this is not only insulting, but probably libelous as well, and has no bearing on any decision making that you would make today. I mean, I've been running my business since 2001, and I certainly didn't build my reputation on misleading committees over the last 22 years. So I would ask that you pay no weight whatsoever to those ridiculous statements that have been made in the representations. In terms of the application, just to summarize, and I'm well aware of the timescales, after consultation with the responsible authorities, the hours requested were reduced. Now, I'm well aware that they are still outside of the policy hours within the Hackney policy, but these are to allow these events that I have described in my submissions to take place, quite limiting for them to end very abruptly at 11 o'clock. It's to allow the flexibility to run on, to have discussion afterwards, to facilitate interest, discussion, whatever amongst people who are attending. And I have mentioned in my submissions, these are type of events that the mayor of Hackney has attended on his own right in previous events at a different premises. So it is not something that we are trying to sneak in through the back door to have the likes of raves and loud music and so forth. It is purely to allow the premises to maximize the ability to run these type of events successfully. The business itself is food-led. and will operate more under restaurant conditions than not, as you'll have seen from the agreed conditions. But make no mistake, alcohol is still an important part of that to accompany the food that is served. We all go to places that have that kind of facility where you can have a drink with the food that you're eating. And the restaurant conditions are there for you to see, waitress service, people sat at tables, etc. And as I've said, the events are of a cultural nature. They're not party, they're not dancing events. And the reason this was inserted into the application to answer some of the objection comments was at the recommendation of the, to be fair, I'm aware I'm at the end of my time.
5 minutes.
I have one last point to make. They were inserted at the recommendation of the police, really to protect the license in the future. Should the applicants in the future at some point decide to sell the business, then anyone taking on that business would not be able to suddenly turn it into a party venue, a club or a pub. They would have to come before you again to remove those conditions. So it gives protection of the license in that respect. And that is why that is on the actual application. I'm aware of my time limitations. Myself and the applicants who are here before you would be happy to answer any questions you may have during the discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Just going to ask Councillor Sousa-Ronger, do you have any questions for clarification?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, thank you for that those comments and that information. You talk about the cultural talks, book signing, and you say that, could you give us a little bit more detail and perhaps how many times you think that you'll be having those throughout the year? Maybe you have already a schedule in mind. So maybe if you could just be a little bit more specific about what these actually entail and perhaps how many you might be having a year, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, could I just interrupt? Could we leave that bit for the discussion phase? Is that okay?
That's absolutely fine.
Okay,
Thank
because
you.
I'd like to know that as well, but I think it's more appropriate at the discussion phase. Anything else that you didn't sort of understand or anything else?
No, Chair, I'm absolutely fine.
Fine, that's great. Thanks very much. In that case, we now move on to the responsible authorities, and I think we only have one responsible authority here in person making representation, which is Mr. Chewett. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, Chair. Yes. So if I just refer you to my representation, which is in today's agenda, Appendix B2. I should say that I made this representation obviously at the time of the original application, which saw activities for until 2 a.m. daily. So as you would have heard and as you would have seen, the application's been amended since then with hours reduced throughout the week and at the weekends across the board, and new conditions attached, etc. As you've heard, I attended a site meeting with PC Griggs, a police colleague, last month at the site, so we were able to look around the site and discuss the application and some of the issues that we had raised and the concerns that we had. Obviously, the applicant has amended the application, as I say, since then. But I do still have some concerns about the proposed hours, given the close proximity to residential premises. And I'm sure, as you'll hear from other persons that are on this call, that those concerns echoed also. I'll leave it there for now, Chair, so we can get to the discussion phase and go into this in a bit more detail. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chewett. Move on now to other persons. I believe we have one other person here. That's Mr. Shaw, is it?
That's correct, yes, local resident.
Okay, are there any that's it for local residents, is it? Is that correct?
I believe I'm sort of the only resident. I believe other residents did state objections in writing.
Yeah, we've definitely got those, so yes, but over to you, Mr. Shaw, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. I think sort of firstly I must address the applicant's, Mr. Gibson's sort of comments. Forgive me, I'm a layperson, I'm a resident, so if you found some of the comments distasteful or even potentially libelous, I am willing to withdraw those comments which you find objectionable, and obviously overstate the sort of, because I don't know the process perhaps as fully or as correctly as I should. So for the record, they were not meant at any personal level, and I would sort of sure that legal would advise if that is the case. However, that said, I will try and keep my remarks rather than reiterating, because I believe I've made representation fairly fully. So the really core issue here is that it's probably a very unsuitable venue for what is being proposed. You talk about the complexity of the application, and therein lies the problem. When you talk about events, these are crept into your rebuttal rather than the application in a clarity of form. So what we are seeing is suddenly being asked to accept that this venue is primarily a cultural or educational, terms which are almost impossible to define in licensing terms, or to give any succor to people who may be concerned about what the public nuisance, and in this instance, the noise issue would be. Now, primarily, the complaint and the objection was never about a deli, bakery, or even an off-license associated with that. It is about the proximity and use of the outside space in relation to primarily 5 to 11 Victoria buildings on the map in the agenda, which is literally meters away. Family rooms, living rooms, spaces. Many of the people who live in those buildings do not feel they have a voice. They do not feel they can state a case. So I'm speaking also on their behalf. The applicant has not really they claim that they've made a robust...
Mr. Shaw, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Shaw. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Yep.
the applicant's representative cannot hear you very well. So I just want to find out what's happened there, because there's no point you continuing unless he hears everything. He needs to hear you.
Of course.
Sorry to interrupt. So would you be able to check your, Mario, could you assist in checking SG Licensing Limited's sound, or assisting them, please?
Two suggestions I can make is for SG Licensing to turn up the volume on their device, and for the resident to maybe speak directly into the microphone, because that helps as well in terms of amplifying your voice.
Of course. Can I clarify, does that help at all?
Sorry, could you remind me of the legal the agent's name?
Mr. Gibson, yeah, can you hear us?
I can, yes. It's only Mr. Shaw. I do apologise. It's the best I can describe it is Mr. Shaw's in a tunnel when he speaks. It sounds very muffled, the words coming out. Everyone else has been fine, but I don't know the issue. I've turned off my video. I'll turn off my microphone as well, and hopefully that is better. But I'm only picking up more or less half of what he's saying, which is...
Is it worth you logging out and logging back in again? Would that help, you think, or not?
You go ahead, Mr. Shaw, yeah.
May I just ask, can other people on this call hear me when I speak here? Or is it just Gibson?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Gibson, can you hear me at this moment in time?
I can hear you better now, and now I've turned things off, but it was only you. Everyone else was fine. It was just when you started to speak, it was difficult. But I've turned off everything now, and that's probably the way to proceed.
Okay, Mr. Shaw.
Should we try again?
Okay, you can resume now. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No, not at all. I appreciate it. Okay, so, and you're quite right, obviously, these comments need to be heard. Just to summarise, just in case Mr. Gibson didn't hear, the objection really primarily relates to the outside space to the rear of Victoria buildings 5 to 11. Often, a lot of the proposal seems to be to put a lot of people in there, and come what may, it is an acoustically problematic space. The design of the building will amplify, will echo, will create noise issues for families, and often there are young families in there, people with young children. We as residents nearby know that through the Last Tuesday Society's use of a very limited outside space, that there are noise implications from using that space. When the proposal is such, and by the way, when on the original application it does state bar, which kind of makes this very difficult to sort of ascertain exactly what is being asked for, what is being applied for, we, I think, have really quite reasonable, legitimate concerns about the number of people, the number of events, and when we're asked to believe that these be educational, cultural, ill-defined, impossible to sort of decide what they actually amount to, terms, it is not simply benign, it is a business. Now, many businesses operate in railway arches. They do so internally. They do not have external space, particularly so close to residential buildings where there was nothing operating there before. So there will de facto be an increase in noise. You asked us not to pay attention to what's in the press, but the significant change is from being asked to sort of see ongoing, persistent events and large dinners and other events consistently to ad hoc infrequent. I have no idea what is being proposed. So we have to presume that the bar will continue to operate as many days as possible in that outside space, causing a persistent, ongoing nuisance problem for local residents. That has not been addressed. In fact, it's just been kicked into the away. We're being asked to focus on the aspect of the exterior space by Andrews Road, not on the bit impacting residents. And the reduction in hours to 2200 hours would still mean potentially noise from 8 o'clock in the morning to 2200 hours at night. You've also then got sort of the issue of dispersal. You have people leaving events. They say it will be limited to 90. That's still a lot of people moving from the rear of the building to the front of the building. That's a consistent nuisance problem. They've not, I don't see any mitigation for any of this. We're being asked to accept that, alcohol is not the primary driver. And I'm okay, I understand that that may be a food-led process, but the application says bar in its opening sentence and its opening statement. I don't quite really fully understand why the license has to be so full, so all-encompassing, when we've heard that sort of it's to protect it for the future. If the business were to be sold, any person would have to apply for a new application in any case, so it doesn't need to be future-proofed as far as I can.
Mr. Shaw, sorry to interject. I think you've probably gone over the 5 minutes now. I know there was a slight delay when we had the issues with the microphone, but
No, that's fine. I think that's the main point. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, sorry to interject. So
Mr. Shaw, it's okay. I think that if you'd like to just sum up anything else, I think another minute or so would be okay. Would it, Chair?
I will be brief, but thank you. I think, I don't wish to repeat it. I'm sure people have the gist of it, which is I just don't think this is a suitable place for the hours that are being asked for, that the external space should be off limits just because there will be a persistent, constant noise impact, that we have seen this from the sister venue, that I understand that they have even advertised on social media for a party to celebrate a menu change at one point. These things are of concern, and particularly in such close proximity. I cannot see how this can be mitigated, so I would ask that the external space be left off. It's not, sort of available to the applicant, and the hours certainly not going beyond what the council outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Councillor Sousa-Ranger, if you have any questions for clarification from Mr. Shaw?
No, Chair, not at this point.
Fine. In that case, we'll move into the step 6, which is the discussion phase. I've got a couple of things that I would like almost for clarity, but that has been raised. First of all, it's regarding the whether it will be used as a bar or not. My understanding is that all alcohol will be served in conjunction with a substantial table meal. Can I just get clarity on that in whatever part of the venue it is, outside, inside, anywhere? Can I get some clarity on that? And also, just in terms of one of the things that Mr. Shaw just did say, if the venue got sold, it would have to apply for a license. No, Mr. Shaw, that isn't correct. The license goes with the venue. Okay, so if there's change of ownership, doesn't mean that there is a change of the new owners would have to apply for a license. So we are effectively licensing this in perpetuity almost. But yeah, if we could just start on the question of the bar aspect, if that's okay. Is all alcohol served in conjunction with the substantial table meal? Perhaps I could hear from Mr. Chewett on that.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the comments. Just to very briefly deal with your second point, the premises license would transfer as it is granted. So if they wish to change conditions to operate differently, they would have to come before you for a variation. But yes, the license would transfer. It wouldn't be a brand new license. We are saying that alcohol needs to be served in terms of people sat at tables and waitress service, that it's not necessarily purely as full restaurant conditions in terms of served with a substantial meal, but there is no flexibility in having people standing at a bar and so forth. So it is not a bar. It's alcohol. Food is available at all times, and alcohol is available for people with a food. But it is not my belief that the condition stating that alcohol is only served with a table meal is on the application. I don't think that is the case.
Yeah, Amanda?
Yes, Chair. Chair, I don't know if it will assist you to ask the applicant's agent whether they would agree to the substantial table meal. We understand it's not on the application, but whether that would be agreed for both inside and outside the premises. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see them on my screen anymore, but the applicants are here, I believe. They may sit under what is 3 others. But I don't see they're on the screen.
We'd like to hear.
Do you have the applicant here?
Mr. Gibson, is your client here?
Are you available?
Yes, yes. I'm here. I'm sorry, but I had the same trouble technically trying to hear what Amanda was saying, what the question was.
Stephen, the question, sorry, I put it to my client. The question was, would you be prepared to accept the fact that alcohol is served only with food? Somebody coming in to buy a meal, it's not on the actual application. What is on the application is that people who are consuming alcohol must be sat at tables and there's waiter-waitress service. The question was, would you be able to concede and accept the fact that alcohol would be served with food only, which would technically make it a restaurant in terms of, as opposed to not a bar?
I mean, that's what kind of business it will be. We'll be. Can people hear me? Okay.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I mean, the intention. We've got the. Sorry, every time I speak, it echoes. You can hear me, yeah?
We can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we operate Ombra, which is across the road of the canal in Tower Hamlets, which has been open as an independent for 11 years, and that's become more of a restaurant now and less of a bar, which it has a license for. A bar restaurant where people could go in and stand at the small bar, but it's much more of a restaurant now. With this one, we decided to take this space because during lockdown we were able to survive by introducing delivery services or homemade pasta and breads. They're an Italian-based restaurant, and that allowed us to survive. And that production of pasta and bread takes up a lot of space in Ombra. So this new premises allows us to have the pasta production and the bread production and selling on the premises. So we'd have a cafe deli kind of area at the front, and then within it we would have the kitchen, and the kitchen's got a service bar and then seated tables. So this suggestion kind of doesn't really do anything to us. That's the way we were going to operate. The only thing that's weird about it, I think, if somebody who comes in to check sees someone standing and not eating food next to a drink, and that makes it a little bit odd to me. But I would be willing to accept it. It's the way we're planning to operate.
Yeah. So you're willing to accept that alcohol can only be served with a substantial table meal? Is that what you're so it can't be a bar, basically.
It's food led, and obviously, you know, we've been able to go 11 years independent because selling alcohol actually makes it easier for a restaurant to become successful.
So that would mean people couldn't come in and they couldn't just order a drink; they've got to order food. Yeah. Okay. So you agree to that. The
So
other
would that
question
be
is,
inside and outside of the premises, or just is that for both inside and outside of the premises?
I would imagine for both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks.
It need to be for both.
Yeah. The next question really concerns the outside space. I mean, looking at the plans, looking at the photographs, you are very, very, very close to some residents. What would be your plans for the outside space in terms of capacity? Do you really need to go till 10 o'clock outside? What are the number of people going to be there? Can you address the management of the outside space?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I'm also a local resident. I'm just a couple of 100 yards away from the premises, and I've been living in the area for 30 years. Mayor Street's a busy road, but I accept Mr. Shaw's position on that back area, and I think myself and Paolo would be willing to work with them in respect to either substantially reducing the hours of operation of people outside there.
Okay, so at the moment you've got until 10 o'clock. I mean, what kind of hours were you thinking of?
I don't know.
8. Could be 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock?
Yeah.
So that you wouldn't be able to use the outside area after 8 o'clock in the evening?
Yeah, 9.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Gibson, I think you've still got your microphone on, haven't you? Yeah, that's better. Yeah, I could hear lots of feedback. Mr. Shaw, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, Kev.
You've heard them talk about closing the outside area at the back at 8 o'clock.
Yep, I think that's. I'm heartened by Mr. Sinclair and Paolo's sort of willing to discuss this in recognition of the issue and the clarity. So I'm very, very grateful for that ability to come back to it. I think 2000 hours, 8 o'clock would be more reasonable, and I think perhaps workable. I would want to just obviously be assured on numbers and other factors such as music. And one of the things which also perhaps is a concern is I appreciate you would have a weather problem there, and if you were to then encase that, would that create a further noise problem? I don't know, but on terms of the hours, Chair, I would be, I think 8 o'clock is something we could work with. Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, Mr. Sinclair, in terms of the numbers in the outside space, what numbers would you look at? So you're on mute still.
I'll refer to Paolo on this one, who's been looking at that closer.
There are two outside areas, and the one which is closest to the neighbors, the residents, is the side area, which we are not really planning a lot of activities there. I mean, first of all, on both, this has to be clear, on both areas, there will be no music whatsoever. So we're not planning to have music outside. And on the area, the back area, I think will be maximum 15, 20 people, no more. But it's a very quiet. We will be a very quiet operations really for eating and drinking.
Yeah.
And we are very happy to close it earlier.
One thing to add, we don't expect big numbers in the neighbouring side to David Shaw, partly because it's in permanent shade. So, it's not going to be the most attractive place to sort of sit out there for too long, but certainly maybe in the hot summer months, it might get a few people during lunchtime and so forth, keeping cool.
Okay, so I'm going to put 15. If that's okay? I've got to say I'm slightly confused by all the different plans. There's a plan that looks like. Can people see that? Looks like that. plan
It's
of the
a bit
premises.
blurred. Unfortunately, it's a bit blurred.
Does everybody have a plan of the premises? Can everybody turn to that bit? Is that okay?
Yeah. Chair, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things, if you don't mind, before
Yeah,
we go on to the plan. Would that be okay? Just
Yeah.
through the chair. Chair, I don't know if you want to just clarify. Going back to the hours, they said that they're happy to close the outside area at 8 o'clock. What time are they commencing the commencement hours? They seem to be starting at 8 in the morning. So I don't know if they could comment on that. And then also, Chair, I don't know if you want to get clarification on how many tables and chairs are going to be in this outside area, and do they have a tables and chairs license? Thank you.
Would you mind addressing those 2 points as well? And also, can I just add, do you mean all outside areas to close at 8 o'clock?
I think, Chair, sorry to come in. I think the gentlemen were talking about the outside area to the side of the premises, which is the one that is directly impacting potentially on the residential properties. The second outside area is the one that is directly in front of the premises, which is not directly impacting on residential properties, and it is a particularly small area. And I think the gentleman would look for an extended opportunity to use that space, especially on. We had a summer last year that was rather agreeable, and it's to allow them to utilize that area to a later hour. When we met with the licensing authority and the police on site, it was kind of accepted that would go on an hour longer than the side area, but we've now scaled the side area back to 8 o'clock. I would ask potentially that you would consider allowing extended hours on the front area, which can only house, I believe, a couple of tables anyway. It's a very small area, but it allows flexibility of people to be outside to enjoy the climate conditions, should that be the case, but just to have a little bit more flexibility on that. But it's a matter for yourselves as to how you'd wish to proceed. In terms of a tables and chairs license, that would be one that they would have to obviously deal with the Highways Agency, and would be in place to allow that to take place.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Gibson. I've got Mr. Chewett, first of all, has raised a hand.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to assist really with the 2 outdoor areas that have been referred to. So on the plans that you held up within today's agenda, just we see Amanda Griggs, PC Griggs representation at B1. The page before that is the plan. I guess that's most helpful.
Yeah, that's right. I've got. Thanks very much. Can we just spend a second on this, because I just want to make sure we absolutely get the right space. On the physical copy, it's on page 98, and it says Plan 1A.
Yes, Plan 1A.
Plan 1A. Those 2 spaces effectively there. It's got 2 outdoor spaces. They're the ones that close at 8 o'clock.
I think it's the one in yellow that the applicant's referred to as closing at 8 o'clock.
I think
So it's shaded in
times.
Sorry?
It's shaded in yellow on Plan 1A.
Okay, mine's not shaded at all.
If you don't have the colour version,
I can share
it's the long triangular shaped area, if that makes sense. A long, more
So
elongated.
the long triangular area is shuts at 8. Is that right?
My understanding, Mr. Gibson might want to confirm that.
Yes,
I believe that's correct.
If you look at the plan from the front up, it's the area to the right-hand side that it's like a cheese wedge. That's the outdoor area garden, it says. That would be the area.
So that was shut at 8, and the other outside area, you'd like that to continue?
We'd like that to continue longer than perhaps 8 o'clock. The gentlemen are here and they can agree or not with me. Originally, we had the site meeting had discussed that to stay open till 11 p.m. It's a matter for yourselves how long you feel that should be allowed to continue. But that's the area that they felt was more relevant for the evening trade, as opposed to the right-hand side, the one that is tucked in like a cheese wedge.
Fine. So would 9 o'clock be okay for that, Mr. Sinclair?
9 o'clock for the small area right at the front. I would prefer 10 because it's better business, but you know, it's only a couple of tables. But if it's a critical point, we'll accept 9.
Fine, okay. And for you, Mr. Shaw, how is that for you? What do you think about that?
Again, I would thank the applicants for their, sort of willingness to sort of give way on this point. I think 9 o'clock on that space, and I think in the application itself and in the agent submission, in the agent's submission was that. Sorry, there's a microphone on.
Yeah. So, Mr. Gibson, can you turn off your microphone, please? Yeah. Thanks. Go ahead, Mr. Shaw. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, just to, so again, thank you, for that. I think you understand sort of the concerns, and those are to be welcomed. 2100 hours is perfectly acceptable. I think it is less impactful. It is facing the canal, doesn't have immediate residents, and wouldn't cause such an issue. To be honest, I personally don't think that is impactful as the rear space. I wouldn't even be unhappy with them until 10 o'clock. That's my personal opinion, but it's up to you, Chair, and the committee. Thank you.
Well, if you don't mind 10, we can go to 10 if that's okay for that space.
Or look, it's up to the committee, but I don't think that's the issue that's of sole concern. I want to sort of show willingness to sort of see the business succeed, but sort of make a viable thing for all parties.
Okay, well, we could consider that at from later on, between 9 and 10, or maybe 9:30 or something. Okay, is that all of the outside space dealt with? Does anybody? Is there any Mr. Gibson, Mr. Sinclair, or is there any other outside space?
I believe that's the outside space dealt with. Although I know David's raised his hand.
Mr. Church?
Yeah, there are no more outdoor spaces, but I don't know. I'm just. I'd have to hope the applicant will forgive me for this, but I actually think that longer external area shouldn't be used under this license. I think if you look at some of the representations, it appears to be overlooked by residential properties, and there could be an issue with noise being channeled up as a result of the brick-faced buildings and the railway arches. And it's not in use at all now. I actually think that maybe for this first application that area should be left out, but obviously that's a decision that can be discussed now or can be made.
Okay, yeah, can we hear from Mr. Sinclair or actually, Amanda, did you want to raise anything?
I was going to say, Chair, if you are considering both areas, for example, I think I want us to make sure that we are referring to them as the correct names. So I don't know if the licensing officer can just clarify for the record what each area is going to be called in case you decide to allocate hours to both. Obviously, that choice will be yours. So just because I'm just conscious that we're saying this area described as such and such, and I'm not sure if everyone will understand that going forward. That's all.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If we look at the plan, Mr. Chewett, which you referred to earlier, so we've got the outdoor area at the front, and then the outdoor area at the side. Is that how we could refer to them? Do you think?
Yeah, we can do.
The front one being on the left, the side one being on the right. Yeah. Okay.
The front one is adjacent to Andrews Road, so it just leads directly off of Andrews Road, and the other one, the other area is sort of tucked in behind the building, sandwiched in between buildings and the railway arch, the viaduct.
Fine. So that's the outside area, right? Basically, that's the area that we're going to refer to as the right. Is that right, Mr. Jewett? And you don't think there should be any licensable activities in there at all?
I'm sure the applicant will come back to me on that, but I just think for this, I just think any activity in that area, because there's no activity whatsoever now. I think that would be quite impactful if that was to be used under this license at this stage. So where the other area is a bit, it's on the, it's adjacent to Andrews Road, so maybe some activity there is a bit more is to be expected, but that other area, I think, I'm not too keen on that other area.
Okay, Mr. Sinclair, could you come back on that?
Yes, thanks, Councillor. I'm going to pass on to Paolo just for a second to help explain. Paolo has been involved on the works to the premises and was also present with the police inspection of the area, and we found quite a significant amount of antisocial behaviour in that area.
Yes, the area, the triangular area, let's call it, was abandoned for many, many years. And during the building works, we dug up thousands, literally thousands of syringes. So we are making an area a little bit better. And we invested money on creating this a nicer environment. And I understand that the noise, it can be an issue, and we're trying to reduce it as much as possible. I believe there is a reciprocal respect between business and neighbors, and we understand. I mean, it's clear that the building and the people living in the building is affected by our presence, and we will try to make it as respectful as possible. Not to use it completely is basically we have to abandon it again and leave it the way it is. But believe me, it was a terrible, terrible place. And for both businesses, even for Ombra, our scope as architects, we are also architects, is to change a space that is completely abandoned and where that creates antisocial behavior. The corner where where this business is going to be is drug dealing all the time. You can see that, and our presence will deter that. So we spoke with the police about it, and yes, it's understandable that on your point of view, we create a different kind of social behavior. But again, we're not a bar, we're not a club. We do culture as well. We try to promote nice, good food. We have, it's another philosophy we have, another scope that we have. So yeah, we can, I wouldn't be happy to just close the area completely, because again, we invested money, and the scope is to create a place that can be enjoyed by everybody, even the neighbors.
Fine, thanks for that. I saw that Mr. Shaw made a comment. Please, Mr. Shaw, you can't put comments in the chat unless they relate to the whether you can hear or not, technical issues. Would you mind just repeating what you said?
Of course, my apologies. I thought that might be of some use to say.
It definitely is of use. You just can't put it in the chat.
My
Okay.
apologies, Chair. My apologies, all people. Yeah, I was going to say yes. That area, I think, just to support the applicant in that in their sort of statement, that historically that area was abandoned and certainly had a lot of antisocial. But just for clarification's sake, I believe Network Rail or one of their agents secured that some years ago, and it ceased to be a shooting gallery. It ceased to be used for sort of drug use some years ago. Once the I think the metal gate that still extant was erected. That said, I just wanted to sort of confirm it has historically had problems. So I don't know if that's helpful, but it's just an observation as a resident.
Yes, that is helpful. Thanks very much. Councillor Soucy-Ranger.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to quickly ask, in respect of the outside space, is the book signing, the talks, the cultural events, are they going to be indoors, or are any of them planned for outdoors?
I can assist on that, Councillor. Thank you. We have agreed that there is no speakers to be in any of the outdoor spaces. So any of the cultural events and so forth will be indoors that will take place. So no magnification of noise or music or whatever there may be to an event or speaking will be broadcast outdoors. That was clarified with the applicants prior to today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just on that outside space again. So we talked about 8 o'clock. Would the applicants be amenable to just using it at lunchtime and say till 4? Yeah, go ahead.
If we can use it in any way, it helps the business. So we would be accepting of 4 o'clock.
Fine. I mean, you if it works and it's okay, there's nothing to stop you asking for a variation later. Although you could be very helpful if you have the support of Mr. Shaw and stuff. But
No.
yeah, so if we could do that till 4, then it would give a chance to sort of try it out, if that's okay. Is that okay with you, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're not here to kill the business. We're here to try and sort of make that space work for everybody. And I, really have to sort of state that very, very clearly. Okay. So I think that's would be acceptable to us. I think it is quite correct to point out that a variation can be applied for, and hopefully we can. I suspect some of the concerns are about the multitudinous uses and sort of disparate nature of the business. As that emerges, that will hopefully become clearer, and any variation in the future will be much easier to support or discuss. We could even discuss it prior to, to reach, a point of consensus. Before you even make the application, we might even be willing and able to support an application for an extension. I'm happy to have a dialogue in short.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Shaw. Amanda, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yes, Chair. I note that Mr. Tuitt has raised concerns about that area being used under this application. I don't know if we can get some more clarification as to how close they are to the local residents at that side, and what is his suggestion then if he has concerns about that area being used, or what's his view about the limit on which it can be used. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, Mr. Stewart, what's your limit about 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
So the first question, I guess, in response to Amanda, is just if you look at the representations. So I think there's a photograph in.
Yeah, there's
Appendix C1.
Yeah.
I think that just gives an idea of how narrow that space is, and potential for noise nuisance as a result of it. The sort of brick faces and noise vibrations. Not vibration, noise reverberating that around off those brick faces. So that's the concern really. 4 o'clock, obviously, that's less hours, so that's less time for people to be out there, so less time for disturbance to be caused. But it is that concern about just any activity there which could potentially impact negatively on the residents in 5 to 11 Main Street.
Okay, thanks for that. Mr. Gibson?
Thank you, Chair. The only point I raised my hand for was when we had the site meeting on the 25th of January, the police welcomed the fact that the outdoor, and David will back this up because he was there, the police welcomed the fact that the outdoor area was used because it would distract what they believed, and it's been mentioned by Mr. Shaw as well, they believed was an inherent problem or a historical problem of drug use and so forth taking place in the area. And their views was that the more you use this for regulated activity, the more it will push people away and they won't risk coming to that area to use it. So it's just purely to make that point. And I'm just not concerned, but just make the point that it may be something that the police took into account in determining to withdraw their representation, that outside space was to be used legally, if you like. It's a matter for yourselves. It was just to make that point.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Gibson. Just the other question on that, on the outside space, is it's supposed to be used from 8 o'clock in the morning. Is that necessary? Sounds a bit early to me to be somebody right next to somebody's hat flat. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Sinclair.
I'm happy if it's 9 or 10. At the front of house within the arch, we expect to be selling coffee. People who know their coffee know that we do quite good coffee. So I would imagine we want to get some morning and breakfast customers.
So for the area, you'd be okay if we said for the both outside areas to use it start at 10, or just the
I would
one on the right?
Fine, because we've seen what's happened in the local area and the changes over the last 15 years, and people like their coffee on their way to work.
So you'd like one of the areas, the left area, effectively in the front, to be open from 8, but the other one you're okay with if it's open from 10. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is that okay with you, Mr. Shaw?
Sorry. Yes. I don't have a concern about that at all. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Cicero-Ranger.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of talking about the outside area and the premises and the closeness to residential areas, I would like to hear a little bit more detail about community engagement, and also in respect of any kind of risk assessment and any kind of fire safety requirements and assessments that have been done given the proximity of the premises to a residential area.
So just before we start, Councillor, sorry, Amanda.
Sorry, I was just saying there, Chair, I don't know if it help if you want to get clarification as to whether or not 6 p.m. closing of that outside area would be reasonable or not.
Yeah, so I think we've agreed that. Yeah.
Okay.
So the left area, if you like, the bit outside, is open from 8 a.m. until 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. Is that right? No, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Sinclair, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, the small area I understood would be 8 o'clock to, well, you said you would decide it later between 9 and 10.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, you're right, you're correct, I did. Yeah, thanks. And the one on the right is from 10 a.m. till 4.
Sorry, so is that 9 or 10, the first one?
We haven't decided yet. That's for discussion. That's what the Councillor Cicero-Ranger and I will just discuss it.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And now, just sorry, Councillor Cicero-Ranger, could you just come in, just raise your questions again? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to hear a little bit more detail, given the close proximity to residential property, about fire risk safety, risk assessment in respect of that. And also, I think, I can't know, what was the other thing? The community engagement, yes. And also what community engagement activities have been taking place.
Chair, I can possibly deal with that for you. As you're well aware, whether the premises is applying for the sale of alcohol or any activity whatsoever through yourselves, they have a duty as a business to carry out a fire risk assessment under the Fire Regulations Order 2005, I think it is, and it's not something that mixes with the licensing permission or not. They have that duty anyway under separate legislation, and the Licensing Act is not designed to interfere with other legislation that already exists. So they have that duty anyway, and they have to do that.
Thank you. I don't have any difficulty with, you know, any enactment and other enactments. I just wanted to hear about how and what is the approach. It's not a question of the legislation; it's the approach to to fire safety and the approach to community engagement, rather than various enactments. Thank you,
Stephen.
Mr. Sinclair, yeah.
Yeah, in respect to fire safety, as I said, both myself and Paolo are architects, or Paolo mentioned it earlier. So we are ensuring all full compliance with building regulations, consulting with fire brigade and so on. In terms, and we know that because we operate another restaurant, the criteria that we need to meet in terms of health and safety and fire safety and the risk assessments necessary for that. So all those are being dealt with at the moment and ongoing. In terms of community engagement, I'm not sure specifically what you mean. Opening a restaurant in a space where you want to be selling alcohol. I wasn't aware that we need to go and actively engage with the community. Can I ask if you can be a bit more specific and I can help answer?
Thank you for that. Really, just how do you let neighbours know? Particularly, you say you're going to have cultural events, and these sound very exciting and very positive. Are you engaging the community in cultural events? You know, that sort of thing. And also maybe a little bit more about training, staff up-to-date training on fire awareness.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Sinclair.
Yeah, thank you. That clears things up. It's just because we do a lot of community engagement as architects on architectural projects, and so I was just getting a bit confused. The cultural side of things is just to sort of clarify that point, because you raised it earlier. We organise an award-winning architectural talk series that's been going on for 5 years. We get local experts. Sometimes it's mostly London-based, and we get people within the architectural built environment and industry and artists and so on. And these talks are usually to do with art, cultural, or architectural subjects, or the things to do with climate change or gender in the workplace and so on and so forth. We tend to do them once a month. With the new space, we've been talking to University of East London, who have got, I think, the poorest demographic of incoming architectural students. And we will be working closely with them to do student-related architectural talks within the new space. Aside from the local community and so forth, at Ombra across the roads, we employ, most of our employees are local. And with the new place, we'll be pursuing the same approach.
Thank you. I'm sure your close neighbours would be very interested in your cultural activities. And so my second point was in respect of, you kindly told me about fire risk and fire safety. What's the training like for staff in respect of fire awareness and that sort of thing, given that you have very close proximity to residential premises?
Yeah, I mean, what we tend to do with the current operation, and we probably do it a similar way, probably more so here, more so because it's a larger space and there'd be probably more employees. With the current operations, and we would transfer in the same principle, is a dedicated, trained up supervisor in terms of the fire safety, who's got responsibilities to check in and make all staff aware of that. And that becomes part of our kind of management training within house.
Thank you. I do ask these questions because, as you know, on page 107 of the pack, there is a concern about fire safety, and it is mentioned in respect of one of the objections. So this is why I'm bringing it up. So I appreciate the details that you're giving me.
Okay, thanks very much. I think the next issue that we've got are the hours. So you've gone for a 1 o'clock license on Friday and Saturday. What would you say were your exceptional circumstances that would lead us to deviate from our standard licensing policy? Thanks very much. Thanks. Over to you, Mr. Sinclair.
Yeah, as Stuart alluded to when he presented on behalf of us, these talk series, we usually do them once a month, as I said. What we find is that the debate goes on. We will have basically a kind of pasta dish, sometimes dessert, and a drink. It's a non-profit thing, but the proceeds of any tickets sold go to the staff and the production of the food and so forth. And we've done about 50 of them. And what we have found on our kind of feedback is that they wish they could go on a little bit longer so that you can sit and chat a little bit longer about those subjects. That gave us the flexibility for going for something like some longer or extended hours, as you said.
So, Mr. Church, do you have any? Thanks for that, Mr. Church. Do you have anything to say to that?
I guess yeah, I think the reasoning is fair. It is just still a concern, again, given the close proximity to residential premises, as to if there's a negative impact with the hours that are beyond the core hours policy.
Okay, Amanda, you just raised your hand.
Yeah, sorry, I think Mr. Stewart just covered it just now. I was going to ask whether on these longer hours, whether or not the applicant would be prepared to accept core hours on them.
Yeah, over to you, Mr. Gibson. Could you address that as well?
The reason I raised my hand, Chair, was just basically to emphasise what Mr. Sinclair has said. The longer hours is subject to events and so forth taking place indoors. Doors would be closed. There would be no impact on residential properties in terms of what is continuing to an extension of the hours beyond the policy. You have a dispersal policy submitted as well. The numbers are fairly limited in what they can accommodate in the premises. It's not a big premises, and as Mr. Chewett will have seen on the visit, as did the police, and so it's quite a small premises. There can't be huge numbers. It's just to allow the gentlemen to run their premises and run these events properly and give maximum benefit and maximum enjoyment, if that's a word, to those attending. To allow them, as he said, to have discussion after the presentation of what it may be. You're not going to have everybody leaving at one point in time. People will leave on their own accord. So the issue to say there will be this amount of people exiting on the street at one particular time is just not the case. People will leave at their own time, and there will be some people leave at the end of the event, but it's not going to be detrimental. And therefore, given that we are talking about this type of event that they're asking for the extended hours to be, I would suggest it is an exception to the policy. And I see that Stephen wishes to add to what I've just said.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Sinclair.
Yeah, just to add to that, so you've got a bigger or fuller idea of what happens in these events. Normally, people will start appearing around about 6:30, 7. We get going around about 7:30. Food and drink is served. The key speakers, who are usually quite well-known people, will always be within the audience, which brings them much closer to a variety of people and locals, etc. So it's a model that we've done, as I said, 50 times. It's worked super well. We've won awards for it. We've had the Mayor of Hackney to, I think, 2 of them. Now, what then happens after about 2 hours, so we're getting into the 9:30 kind of area, is that most people will leave round about then. I would say maybe half stay for another drink, and then we usually start to wind up because of licensing hours. But sometimes we end up going and taking special guests over to the Hare pub because, you know, in current licensing in our current place in Ombra, which is too small for these events, you know, we're having to close up. So this new space allows us the flexibility to have, you know, a later continuation if there's people staying afterwards who are special guests, or the debate keeps going. And yeah, that's kind of the nature of it. It's not like a kind of event that stops at, say, 11:30 and then everybody piles out. It starts dispersing around about 9:30.
Okay, can I just check on that? So would you be, I mean, I'm not saying we will agree to this yet because we've got some other things we'd like to hear about, but if you said cease alcohol service at 12:30 and the whole place has got to be closed by 1, that's what so no, it's not, you're not ceasing alcohol, you shut, you're closed, that's it completely at 1 o'clock? Is that because you're pushing it now, to be perfectly honest, it's, I think we could consider it if it was like, okay, it's a cultural venue, it shuts, the last alcohol is served at 12:30, the whole thing is done by 1, closed and finished. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're willing to work with whoever. See, we do other events which are food orientated as well, where you might be, doing, specializing in a particular cheese or whatever, and we just felt it gave us that flexibility. It's not that these events are, there's always a dispersal period. So I mean, if we have to, yes, but as I said, we do these talks, we pay for them from our architectural business, and we kind of don't make money from them. So we felt that, letting them sort of.
I understand that they can go on a bit, but I mean, 1 o'clock in the morning is a pretty late for an architectural talk, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, yeah. So I mean, I think that we might be minded to accept that. I'd quite like to hear from Mr. Shaw what he thinks.
Yeah, I don't really feel like I've got skin in a particular game on this point, because the only thing I can really sort of say is that I think this is where the application becomes complex and confusing in terms of intent and meeting all the criteria. We've talked about it being a bar. We've had that clarity. We've talked about it being a restaurant and food orientated rather than alcohol led. Then we get these kind of talks. Now, is it a restaurant? Is it a bar? Is it a cultural space? And I kind of have to step away because I think that's for licensing. I have my reservations and I have my concerns, but I think on a personal level, I would say it's pushing it.
Fine. Okay. I've just got, can I hear from Amanda first, please?
Yes, Chair. What I was going to ask is, would they consider the Sunday to go down to the core hour of finishing at at 10:30?
Yeah, Can we hear about that, please, Mr. Sinclair?
Yeah, I mean, we'll happy to concede on the Sunday to 10:30. If we have to, we'll concede to 12:30 on the Friday and Saturday. As I said, I mean, we're not trying to confuse issues with talks. This is something that we kind of modeled on a kind of cafe society, that type of discussion that changes the way that architects, artists, planners all talk about subjects in and around a bar, restaurant, eating and drinking, and it works. We've done them across the country as well. Done them in the building centre recently over Bristol, and you can 12:30 is fine.
Fine. Okay. So can I go back to Mr. Gibson?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Sinclair has agreed to 12:30. The only point I was going to make was when we had the site visit on the 25th of January, both the...
Oh, Mr. Gibson, I can't hear you.
Mario, can you check
Please,
if Mr. Gibson?
we agree.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Gibson, you're going to have to say all that again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you said the last bit I got was when we had the site visit.
Both the police and the licensing authority officer, Mr. Chewett, were happy with the hours that we put forward because we had a discussion on those hours, and that's what they said. Well, put those hours forward. It's a matter for yourself, Chair.
Fine. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, Amanda.
Yes, Chair. I think one of the things which has been noted is that with these additional hours, and although I appreciate that they're having these events, Chair, is
as
that
to what you potentially agree. I know Mr. Sinclair has said half 12 would be.
is that they've not said anything about the impact on local residents at those hours that they're proposing. You know, that's the real concern. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, can I just hear from Mr. Sinclair what you think about that?
I think there's a bit of confusion. As I said, we're trying to have the extended hours on those times as agreed with the police and Mr. Hewitt after that meeting, because of the fact that we do an event that's talk-based, food and drink-based inside the premises. It's not a party event. It's a civilized talk event with renowned guests.
Okay, so Mr. Hewitt? Mr. Hewitt, you've got your hand up.
Oh, sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just to come back. I think Mr. Gibson made reference to the meeting that we had at the site, and it is right to say that when we discussed it, I did say, look, these are the core hours. If your client seeks an application beyond the core hours, then the likelihood is that I would maintain my representation. In this particular area, we did note the character of it. It's close to a main road. There are some transport links there at the weekend. It's not too far away from Bethnal Green Station, where the Central Line operates at 24 hours on Friday and Saturday. So we did note that, but of course there are these residential premises quite close to the site. So that was something that we highlighted as well. I would just say that obviously this application seeks activities which are supply of alcohol, late night refreshment, live and recorded music. So although the current applicant, and if you're minded to grant a license, you know, it would the assurances being given by the applicant today is maybe of some comfort, but as we know, the license is permanent unless it's surrendered, revoked, or lapses. So we do have to be mindful of future occupants of this site. A lot of talk about cultural events. We can't. It's not actually licensed. It's not actually something that I think would be enforceable, like conditions around cultural use. Culture just has such a broad definition; it could mean anything. So we do have to be mindful of who else could take this site on, and I think that's where I'm coming from, really.
Okay, can I just interject there? Yeah, I mean, we've gone for a meal, so it can't be used as a bar, which would be my concern. You know, if we were licensing it till late, they would have to go for a change of, have to go for a licensing application if they did want it to be a bar. So that does some way to going to lessening the potential if it were to change hands. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Sinclair.
Yeah, to follow up on Mr. Truett's point, we took on the lease with Artco, who are the kind of longer leaseholders from Network Rail. As part of the conditions, and it's in our lease, it's specific to E-Class for the sale of food.
Oops, Mr. Sinclair, you've just frozen. Mr. Sinclair, can you hear me? Mr. Sinclair?
Can you log out and log back in again, possibly?
Mr. Sinclair? Can you hear me?
Mr. Gibson, are you able to contact your clients?
I will attempt to ring them now. I think
Yeah,
they're
just
trying
ask
to
them
get
to log
back.
back in again and perhaps turn off the camera or something.
Well, I think obviously if we just pause for a moment and allow Mr. Sinclair and Paolo to rejoin the meeting. And there they are.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, I did admit them. I don't know where they've gone. There they are. Great.
Mr. Sinclair.
Sorry about that. Yeah, to help answer Mr. Chewett's concern.
Sorry, can I just stop you? Could you just turn off your camera for a second? That might make a difference to the connection. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay. Yeah, when we took the lease from Arch & Co, it's E-class, but specific to the use of selling and consuming food and drink on the premises. And that's not a bar use or a club use or anything else. It's almost specific to restaurant use.
Fine. Thanks very much. Okay, so can I just go over just the hours just once more? So for my clarification, it will be Monday to Thursday, 8 o'clock to 2300, closing at 23:30. Then Friday and Saturday, 8 o'clock until midnight 30, closing at 1 a.m. And Sunday, 8 o'clock till, is it 2300, closing at 23:30? Does that sound, those are core hours, aren't they, Amanda? Is that right?
Sorry, Chair. I think that the Friday and Saturday normally goes up to midnight. So you've given slightly more on the Friday.
So till effectively, sale of alcohol till 12:30, close at 1. And then Sunday, Sunday I was getting a bit confused about this. Is it
22:30? They've agreed to the reduced hours.
22:30 on Sunday,
and then they close at 2300 hours.
Yeah, is that okay, Mr. Sinclair? Fine. Okay, I think those are most of the points that we thought of in advance. I've now, if we just turn back to the meeting procedure now, I don't think we've got. Again, hold on for a second. So we've had the discussion, I think. Now we've just got closing remarks. So I'm going to just go around and get some closing remarks. I'll start with, if it's okay, I'll start with you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's been, a useful meeting. As I've already sort of stated, I'm grateful for the applicants for their willingness to negotiate and discuss these points openly and give some concession. I'd still I find the original application was perhaps unclear, and just as a sort of matter of record, it would have reduced down a lot of concerns for both myself and other residents if it had been a clearer application in the first instance, and we could have avoided some of the questions. But so my closing point is I'm not unhappy, and I'd pass this back over to the committee to consider the application and its following discussion. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Shaw. And then I think go to Mr. Chewett.
Nothing really further to add at this stage. I think, as Mr. Shaw says, the applicant has been quite willing to understand the concerns of other residents and has amended the application quite significantly. So I think it's, I've got nothing further to add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chewett. And then over to you, Mr. Gibson and Mr. Sinclair.
Thank you, Chair. I think I can deal with this. You've heard from the applicants today. They're very amenable to working with the residential concerns in the area. There has been significant changes to what they're asking. They basically want to run the business, obviously to their benefit, but also to not detriment the local residents in the area. I have really nothing more to add to that, and I would ask that you grant the application as amended.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibson. Mr. Sinclair?
Yeah, just briefly, Councillor. We never intended to mislead anyone, particularly Mr. Shaw, at the beginning. Just to help explain, when we were making the application, we thought we were sort of saying to Stuart, let's get as most that we can, because it's tough out there. I've been a local resident for 30 years, and basically, a lot of people who work in this industry have little place to go in the area at certain times, and it always gives us better flexibility, better chance of making money. But all the hours that have been discussed this year are fine with myself and Paolo, and we'll try and be as reciprocal as possible with Mr. Shaw. Moving on.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Sinclair. Okay, I think that brings the public part of the meeting to an end, actually. So I just want to say thank you very much for being so courteous to each other. That's much appreciated to everybody. I now, what was going to happen now? Oh, sorry, Amanda.
Sorry, Chair. I don't know if it helps at all to clarify the external area hours, and also I wanted to also clarify about the outside area. The number of tables and chairs that they're planning to use, would 16 be a reasonable figure? Sorry, just to help us make sure we put something reasonable.
Okay, yeah, okay, just on that point, that's a good point, actually. Can we just go over, looking at we also need to clarify which bits they're in, okay? So...
Yes, Chair, that would help.
Yeah, so if we go to the outside area in the diagram, I think we discussed it before as outside area front and outside area right. Now, the outside area front, I've got from 8 o'clock in the morning till either 9 or 10, which we'll discuss, which my fellow councillor and I will discuss. Do we have any number of chairs or tables of chairs for that area?
Yeah, that area is quite small. So we're probably talking about 16 people.
Yeah, 4 tables.
4 tables maximum.
So 4 tables, 16 people is the capacity, yeah?
Yeah.
Then the outside area right, I've got starts at 10 o'clock, finishes at 4. Okay. How many tables and chairs and people? I think we had a capacity of 15, didn't we, or something?
It would be roughly the same because of the shape of the space.
So 4 tables and 15 and 16 people or something.
Yeah.
16 people. Okay, does that help, Amanda?
That's excellent. Thank you, Chair. Excellent.
Okay, thanks very much. I think that probably concludes everything we've got. Now we just need to go away and make our decisions, if that's okay. So,
Chair, just sorry, Chair, just for completion, obviously we've got a standing agenda item. Just to clarify for the recording, there are no 10s on the agenda for today.
Thanks very much. Okay, if we could now ask everybody to log out, who isn't everybody who all other persons to log out. Would that be okay? Mr. Shaw, you've got your hand up.
Just one final point of clarity. Will you be notifying us by email of the decision and clarity of sort of all the matters discussed?
Yes, the decision will be sent out as soon as possible, but a skeleton decision will be sent out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is that anything else? Okay, fine. Thanks. If all the other persons could log. Oh, sorry, Mr. Sinclair. Don't worry. Okay, that's great.
Saying goodbye. Saying goodbye.
Okay,
thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.